Hello, everybody, and welcome to Late Night Football. Welcome to another episode. And this is a very special episode because this weekend is the Carabao Cup final. And I mean, it's a competition that a lot of people don't take very seriously. It's a competition that's often seen as the ugly stepchild of the domestic football calendar. But I've always loved the competition. I've always loved the League Cup in some ways, and it goes back to my love for the Europa League. Actually, like I mean, those are competitions that are a bit unheralded, a bit sort of looked at slightly with the people who turn their nose up at those competitions. But I love them. I love those kind of competitions. I love the League Cup for that reason. It's absolutely fun to watch. And today I'm gonna count down my well, I'm not gonna count down, but I'm gonna list my favorite three most memorable Carabao League Cup, EFL Cup, Carling Cup, whatever you want to call it, finals. So we're going to talk three. So there's no criteria as such in terms of order. This is not necessarily my top three. There's no particular order to it. I'm going chronologically by year. So I'm going to start with the oldest first to the newest. And these are just my three most memorable ones. It's not the three best finals. It's not the three most high quality finals, anything of that sort. There's just three that I think stand out to me as a fan and in my memory, and I'll give you the reasons for why each one of them is special. And I've looked at a lot of different ways of analyzing it, and I've tried to limit it to just one club per listing, so that therefore otherwise then you're talking different, you can kind of get bogged down into it with each final. So I'm just looking at it as one club or in each listing. That's all that I'm looking at, and I've picked three, and it's in chronological order. But I've gone from 2005 onwards because I think that's when my sort of football fandom started. So I don't want to go before that, and because I don't have much of an idea about those ones, so I didn't want to go too far back as well. So it's only in the last 15 years, I guess, we're talking about the best Carabao Cup finals from the last 15 years. Well, not the best, but the most memorable ones for me from those 15 years. I picked my three most memorable ones. And we've got to enjoy them because we don't know how long this competition is going to last. I mean, the new Champions League format coming, the European Super League is sort of on the side for now. Will that come back? We don't know. So we've got to enjoy this, and I'm going to enjoy this one. But as we look ahead, my top three Carabao Cup finals, and we'll start with the first one, and it's 2006. It's Manchester United against Wigan Athletic. It finished Manchester United 4, Wigan Athletic 0, and coming into this game, it was there was a lot of stories around this game. The reason why it's memorable for me is when you look back at 2006, it was a weird time actually for Manchester United in a bit. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about Wigan first. Wigan, today they are known as a League One team, as a team that probably was too fortunate to be in the Premier League for as long as it was. Back in 2006, they were a newly promoted side in the Premier League. They were second at one point of time in the season before they settled into mid-table, and they stayed there. And they got to the Carabao Cup final. They had a decent team at that time. They were overachieving, and I don't think it would be any stretch of imagination to say that they were overachieving, but they were having a good season. And they come into this final, with all kinds of hope, with all kinds of dreams. And the reason for that is because Manchester United in 2006, or at least in early 2006, were completely different to what they would become just a year later. I mean, it's incredible to think now, but this was a United team that was completely unstable behind the scenes. I mean, Ferguson had announced his retirement in 2002, but then he U-turned it, stayed on. He won the league title in 2003. By 2006, United had gone through a very lean patch. Chelsea had overtaken them. Arsenal had overtaken them as well, and they were staring down the barrel. And as bad as crazy as it sounds today, there were calls for Ferguson to retire from the media, not from the fans, not from the board, according to him, but definitely the media. There were lots of people in the media who were saying Sir Alex Ferguson needs to retire, and so he came into this game under a lot of pressure. This was United's last chance of a trophy as well for that season, because they had been knocked out of the Champions League in the group stages. They'd been knocked out of the FA Cup. Chelsea were running away with the league. I think they were 12 points clear at that point. Up time, so this was their only chance for a trophy. They'd gone trophyless the season before, and coming into this game, Roy Keane had been sacked from the club. He had been told that he could leave, so he had left, and Ruud van Nistelrooy was dropped from the team. He was taken from the starting lineup to become a super sub, and actually he didn't even make the squad for this game. He wasn't even named in the squad. So all these things in the background, they come into the game and it's just completely blow Wigan away 4-0. And the reason why it's memorable is because this was the start of a new Manchester United. This was the start of a Manchester United that, in some ways, what we saw in that game was a United that was going to be built and was going to dominate English and European football for the next 3 years. It was incredible to watch it. It was Cristiano Ronaldo, Wayne Rooney. They had absolutely amazing games. This was their coming out party in some ways. The first trophy that those two won together. Ronaldo did win the FA Cup in 2004, by the way, but yeah, this was their first trophy that they won together. They played well together, and I think that's Ferguson said that was the future. That was the future with himself, Rooney, and with Zaha, who unfortunately got injured, and then they got in Tevez. There were still a few parts that needed to be added: Carlos Tevez, Michael Carrick, Owen Hargreaves, all those guys, but I think Ferguson in this game, he saw the future. He saw that this is where Manchester United need to go, not in the goal poaching style of Ludwig van Nistelrooy, but the explosive style of Wayne Rooney and Cristiano Ronaldo. The talents that those two possess, and the pace and the ability that they have, that's where the future is. And I think he saw that, and that this was sort of that confirmation moment for Manchester United and for Sir Alex Ferguson. And then what came after is definitely something worth writing about the next 3 years. You could make other cases for United finals, by the way. Honorable mentions: the iPod final of 2009, where Ben Foster looked won it on penalties for United by practicing penalties on an iPod, which was a big deal back in those days. And then, of course, he had the Zlatan Ibrahimovic final of 2017, where he pretty much took United from, dragged them to the win, where Southampton probably should have won it. There'll be a lot of Southampton fans who will be agonizing over Gabbiadini's disallowed goal, but Ibrahimovic won it. But I think this, for me, takes the cake just because of what it foretold and what it brought to United. I think this game, for me, stands out as absolutely memorable. I think going on to my second one, it's Birmingham City 2, Arsenal 1 in 2011. I mean, that what can you say about that game? Well, what can you talk about that game? It was some things are best left unsaid, as they say, but we have to talk about this. And I think as much as people talk about lows and where Arsene Wenger went with Arsenal, I think for me this was probably the lowest point. At least this was the point where you kind of knew that Arsenal were not going to be Arsenal anymore. Not the Arsenal of the 2000s. The 2000s were firmly in the background. This was an Arsenal team that was completely different. Somewhere I think they lost the plot. I think the word to put there. But I mean, what a memorable game. I think Arsenal, having been without a trophy since the FA Cup in 2005, so they had gone 6 years without a trophy. They come up against Birmingham City, newly promoted, sort of in mid-table, but still sort of fighting a relegation battle. But they come into this game, everybody just is up for it, and everybody's saying, you know what, Arsenal are going to win this one. There's no way Arsenal can lose this one. They've got to win this one. And it was the best chance of winning a trophy since that FA Cup, and everybody was like, yeah, this is it. This has to be it. And then a new Arsenal emerges, a new Arsenal comes along, but fate had other ideas. And Robin van Persie scores, but then he gets injured like he always does. So he's and then Birmingham just come back and they score 2 goals, and including a stoppage time winner, that late last minute winner, which totally changes the game, changes the mood around Arsenal. I mean, Arsenal, this was a game that was in Arsenal's hands. This was a game that was meant for Arsenal to win, and then they go and they bottle it and they lose it. And I mean, you just have to see the sides for Arsene Wenger. I think personally, this, as good as it was a win for Birmingham, and I will talk about that in a second, I just thought this was the moment of confirmation as well. If you think about 2006 as the beginning of a new era for Sir Alex Ferguson, I think 2011 was the end of an era for Arsene Wenger. I think it was the moment when people knew Arsenal were never going to be serious challengers for any kind of major trophies. They were not going to challenge for league titles, Champions Leagues, Europa Leagues. They were not going to challenge for those. And they did still win 3 FA Cups, by the way, in 4 years. They did win an FA Cup, I think, 3 years later. Yes, they won the FA Cup. And they did win a few FA Cups, but I think this was the moment where people realized, this Arsenal team doesn't have the mental strength to go on and win those big trophies. And I know the League Cup is not a big trophy, but kind of making semantics as to what I'm saying is the fact that that Arsenal team, definitely that vintage of Arsenal team, definitely didn't have that mental fortitude. But it was incredible to watch. The scenes after that was disconsolate. The trolling that happened was incredible, of course. But you just got to feel for some of the Arsenal players, and for Arsene Wenger, who must have thought he had finally broken broken that jinx, and he had to wait a few more years to break it. For Birmingham City, I mean, it was an interesting season because they won that game and nobody expected them to. And to be honest, they had a game plan. Actually, there's a wonderful article on the Guardian. If you have a chance, find it and read it. It's an absolutely beautiful article from the Birmingham players who talk about how they approached that game and how they won it, and their mindset going into that game, their ability. And I think the one thing that stood out was the fact that one of the players said, and I'm paraphrasing this, but he said something to the effect of, we knew how Arsenal were going to play and we knew how we had to counter it. And I think that was the main thing. The predictability that had creeped into Arsene Wenger's game was now coming to the fore, and now even teams like Birmingham in big games, they kind of knew what they had to do to win. And that's a wonderful article. If you can find it, read it. It really gives insight into what happened for that game and what it meant for the rest of the season. But they go on and win that game. It was incredible for Birmingham. Absolutely putting on a real masterclass in some ways in that game, and how to beat Arsene Wenger and Arsene Wenger's Arsenal. It's wonderful. But the season didn't have a happy ending. They actually got relegated at the end of the season. I mean, that was incredible. And again, that article actually put some insight, because some of the players were carrying injuries and they all wanted to play in that final. And the amount that they gave in that final, the amount that they put into that game, and then a few players who were carrying injuries, they all broke down, and they lost a few players to injuries, and then that was it. Their league challenge of staying up kind of deteriorated. So even though they won the League Cup, they went out of the league. They were relegated that season. Alex McLeish, who won the trophy, he actually left the club as well at the end of the season. So, and then the whole team disintegrated. And Birmingham today are now dangling. They're kind of a yo-yo club between the Championship and the League One. That's where they are right now. But that was the last moment of glory that they've had for a while. But you can't begrudge that for them. It was absolutely fantastic final. And an honorable mention in this case even to Swansea in 2013 when they won the League Cup as well, which was again a wonderful final for anybody. It was, I think, one of the few finals where none of the big six clubs were involved, which was, I think, one of the last times actually that you had a final where none of the big six, neither of the two teams involved were big six clubs. So, I mean, it's special for that reason. But I think just for the fact that Birmingham beat Arsenal, I think stands out for me in terms of memory. So that's my pick. And then number 3, my final pick. And this one, it's Chelsea against Manchester City. Manchester City beating Chelsea on penalties in 2019. You could pick so many Manchester City League Cup wins. City have won quite a few in the last few years. You could win so many of Chelsea's when Chelsea won a fair few as well. But this one, for sheer drama, I think it picks the cake. And the drama didn't actually come on the pitch. It actually came in an incident that had nothing to do with football. But what a game it was! The first game in football, or maybe one of the few games in football where a team changes their manager midway through the game. I'm kidding, obviously, I'm trolling, obviously, but that was the game. The Kepa Balaga final, you can call it that one. What a game that was. Chelsea City were en route to a domestic treble. They were in a neck-and-neck battle with Liverpool. They were, in the Champions League at that point. Still, they were looking at quadruple, but they were also chasing a domestic treble. Never been done before. And City looking... They had somehow clawed Liverpool back, even though Liverpool had the advantage. Somehow the other, they managed to claw themselves back in the title race. They were back in front, and just trying to find any kind of edge in that. And then this League Cup final comes, and it's against Chelsea. And they had a pretty kind draw. I think that season, one of the things that gets talked about a lot, and I still don't think it gets talked about enough, is how kind the draw was for City in both the League Cup and the FA Cup. And even in the Champions League, actually, if you look at it, they had some very, very easy teams. And this, I think, was probably the toughest game that they played in all of their 3 cup competitions. This was the toughest game that they played against Chelsea in the League Cup semi-final. This was the toughest one. They actually, I would say that. They lost to Tottenham eventually. They went out, but this, I think, was probably the toughest challenge that they were going to face that season, and that says a lot about City and all that. But Chelsea just, this was a Chelsea team that actually beaten City not so long ago. They'd beaten them, but then they also got hammered and humiliated by Manchester City as well. So coming to this game, both were sort of even Stevens, and Chelsea just put on a defensive wall. They're just trying whatever they can to keep City out. They're actually showing the template that what became the reason for why Pep Guardiola lost the title the following season, because they began, I don't think that was where it started. But I do think that was confirmation that people needed that, this is what we need to do if we want to stop City. And I think Chelsea, executed that plan to perfection, all the way up until the 115 minute, and then Kepa goes down with what looks like an injury. He's down for a while. The physio comes on, is training him, treating him, and then Sarri says, you know what, I'm going to replace my goalkeeper. I'm going to make that change. I'm going to bring on my reserve goalkeeper. Now there's a story there as well that Willy Caballero was the reserve goalkeeper, and he, is obviously it was a former City player. So imagine the headlines that a former City player comes on for an injured goalkeeper for his new club and then wins the League Cup for said new club on penalties. I mean, what a story that would be, except Kepa decided that, you know what, no, I'm okay to continue. I don't need to come off. And so, even as the manager is telling him that, you need to come off, Kepa stays on the field and he's like, no, I don't want to come off. And I mean, that happens all the time. Players don't want to come off. But, when the number goes up and the board goes up, you got to come off. And he still refuses. He says, no, I'm fine. I'm going to stay. And all of this in the backdrop, I think a lot of people ignore this or miss this, is that as Mourinho, as Sarri is bellowing at Kepa to come off, there's Gianfranco Zola. Gianfranco Zola, by the way, is a massive Chelsea legend, and he's just standing in the background. He's just going, why the hell is he not coming off? Like, what is going on? Come off. And I just feel like, a Chelsea legend like that can he's feeling the heat, and he's saying to his player to come off, and the player still refuses. Kepa refused to come off, and he just says, I'm fine, I'm staying on. There was a bit of a back and forth between the two. The commentators are going wild as to what's happening. The goalkeeper's looking, spare thought for the goalkeeper, because he's all strapped up and ready. He doesn't think he's going to play, but then suddenly he thinks he's not going to get ready and play. But then the player doesn't listen. The player doesn't want to come off, and what does the goalkeeper do? He's just standing there waiting. And that's so much I've said. And then Sarri just walks off for a while. He just walks out towards the tunnel, thinking he has been sent off. Now there's some conjecture. Was he walking off because he was upset at the player? Was he walking off because he thought he was suspended? I think he was walking off because he thought he got a red card for what he was doing, but it wasn't the case. He comes back, he sits on the dugout though, and Kepa continues. And I don't know whether that was the reason why Chelsea went on to lose the game. I don't know the answer to that, but because it goes to penalties, and obviously Chelsea don't win, City win on penalties, but I do think it broke his focus just a little bit, and sometimes that affects your concentration, that affects your mental state, and and affects the players as well, because the players probably watching it on the field as well and thinking what's going on. But that became the Kepa Arrizabalaga final, wasn't it? And then everybody memed and everybody tweeted and posted and everything about Kepa being the new manager of Chelsea, and then Maurizio Sarri was sacked. I mean, that just it's something that will live in my memory for a long time to come, just because of the fact that in my experience, the first time that I've seen players be upset at being asked to come off. I've seen players be not get angry at the manager and not shake the manager's hand, or just walk away, or just look down in disgust. But I've never seen a player say, you know what, I am not coming off, no matter what, I'm gonna stay. Like I'm gonna stay. I've never seen that happen before. So it's gonna live in my memory for a long time. And if you haven't seen the video, I'm sure there's videos of it on YouTube. You can find it. I mean, that is something that will live in the if anybody who watched that final, it will live in their memories for a long time to come. But the scenes there. But City went on to win that match, and they went on to complete the domestic treble. But unfortunately, the final won't be remembered much for them and their domestic treble as much as it will be remembered for Chelsea and what happened there. So that is it. That is my list of top 3 most memorable Carabao Cup finals for me. Feel free to smash a like, and if you enjoyed that, and please do comment on what do you think were your memorable Carabao Cup finals. Do you have any list of your own? Do you agree with my list? Well, you probably don't agree. Most of you probably don't agree with my list, but do you agree that those were memorable enough, or do you think there were others that deserved more of a mention? Do mention in the comment section. Would love to hear from you. And obviously, we've got the big Carabao Cup final coming up this weekend between Manchester City and Spurs. Will that do something to knock our top 3? My top 3 rather of that list? Will one of them take that place? You know what, Jose Mourinho is fired, so I don't know if that's going to happen, but we shall see. But let me know what you think. Thank you so much for watching. Please do subscribe to my channel if you're watching this on YouTube, or like my page on Facebook if you're watching it on Facebook. Really appreciate the support. Would love to see you guys again for another episode. But take care, have a good day. Bye bye.